No mai hara mai. Welcome to the first Corporate and Performance Committee meeting for this term. Just a reminder that we are being live streamed and that is available via Council's YouTube channel. Could I please ask everyone to stand for the opening karakia? Tūtawa mai i runga, tūtawa mai i raro, tūtawa mai i roto, tūtawa mai i waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. This morning I have an apology for lateness from Councillor Lawrence. She has an unwell child, so she's just cruising to school to pick her baby up and then she's going to join us. I haven't received anything from Councillor Simpson at this stage. I'm happy to move that we accept Councillor Lawrence's apology and thank you for seconding Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest this morning for our agenda? No. Carl. Do we have any announcements by the Mayor? No. Any announcements from management?
No, nothing from me.
We have no minutes to confirm, given this is the first committee meeting of the term, as I said. So we will move into our first agenda item. Oh, sorry, just before we do that, I just wanted to notify you that a slight change to our agenda today, just to save us from going out of open into PX and then back into open. I'm just going to bring the reports under delegated authority, the tenders let, up into our open agenda. And then we can move into the PX in a nice smooth flow of So sorry about that, ladies, but I will move to you now. We'll move to our first agenda item. We have the Napier Social Monitor Report. We have Margot and Michelle to present the paper. Kia ora.
Te Māori koutou, many thanks, Chair Sally. We're pleased to be here to present the 2025 Napier Social Monitor Report findings, and we'll give you a very brief presentation of the highlights. We'll take the paper as read, and we have Virgil Troy here from SIL Research to answer any technical questions that may come up at the end of our short presentation. So some of you may know that the Social Monitor is a point-in-time survey. It's completed once per annum. So this is data from August, September, October last year that was collected. It essentially covers information on a range of social indicators. You can see those there on the slide. So community safety, diversity and inclusion, social connection, community wellbeing, resilience, emergency preparedness, and a number of other indicators. The community resilience and emergency preparedness measures were added to the survey after the cyclone as something that we wish to monitor over time. So the data is collected using a number of methods, primarily online, but also by postal survey and by telephone survey. And it aims to collect information from a representative sample of residents. So this survey collected information from 446 people, which is a sample size that we can have confidence in giving us an indication of the sentiment and perceptions of Napier residents as a whole. We also just take the opportunity to do snapshot surveys as and when emerging issues arise. So, for example, we did one post-COVID to just check in with our residents about how they were feeling post-COVID. We did a community safety survey in 2021 after there'd been some concerns about gang shootings and other incidents in Taradale and in the city. And we did a post-cyclone wellbeing survey immediately after the cyclone, so that was in May 2023. So we'll just run through, as I said, a high-level summary of the indicators that have either improved, kind of stayed the same, or declined over the recent after the last 12 months since the last survey. And this is essentially reflected in the paper that you have in front of you. So firstly, the measures that have shown an improvement since 2024, and when we say improvement, we mean a statistically significant improvement. So yes, some indicators show a small increase, but they're not; those increases are not statistically significant, but these are the ones that are. So firstly, from left to right there, safety perceptions had mixed results in 2025. And safety overall continues to have an impact on several other measures as well, especially people's feelings of their overall quality of life in Napier. So it's quite a key indicator. Two areas where safety perception showed signs of improvement, however, are where people feel safe when going out during the day. That now sits at 80%, which is pretty positive. And also people feeling safe when home alone at night, 79%, so similar. So in the middle there, we also look at a number of indicators to measure what we call the Community Resilience Index. So this has shown year-on-year improvements since it was first included in the post-cyclone survey. So as I said, it's a composite measure and it includes several indicators that ask people if their community works together to help each other, if their community has by and large recovered after the cyclone, and if people know where to go in their community for help. So it looks at all those measures together and comes up with a composite number, and that's improved. And the third measure up there is around neighbourhood perceptions. 8 out of 10 people say their neighbourhood is a good place to live, similar to post-cyclone, and 2/3 say their neighbourhood is everything they need, and that's a positive upward trend since pre-cyclone levels. So just looking now at the indicators where there's been little change, I won't go through all of these in depth, but I'll just highlight a few here. So 42% of Napier residents believe diversity makes Napier a better place to live. There's been little change here in the last 3 years. And in addition, about the same percentage of people have themselves or seen someone else experience prejudice or intolerance, or been treated unfairly or excluded, and that's changed little over the last year. So Council's adoption yesterday of the multicultural strategy presents an opportunity to look at improving those figures. The average agreement score that we collect for accessibility, again, is a composite measure. It shows no improvement since 2024, and that appears to be closely linked to people's views on how easy it is to get around Napier, with a lack of public transport and a dependence on cars being the main issues. On the upside, and not shown here, is one of the small measures in here. It looks at perceptions of the accessibility of Napier's facilities, and that's improved slightly over the last 4 years, which is positive. So as mentioned earlier, just touching again on safety, this had mixed results. So here you can see the measures where there was no improvement in the last year, and that's in terms of overall safety perceptions. That sits at about 60%. So the positive is that was 38% post-cyclone. So there has been an improvement overall, but just not in the last 12 months. Feelings of safety in the CBD during the day and at night showed no significant change. And the most prominent safety concern for people when they were asked about what that was, so that was an open question, was homelessness, and that was the same as in 2024. And alcohol and drug use increased in the last year as an issue, whereas concerns about gangs and associated violence actually decreased. And then lastly on this slide, I'll just touch on social connections, which remain high and similar to post-cyclone, where we really saw social connections come through as a positive. And in particular here, residents with a supportive network of family and friends is especially high at 83%. So while it's high, it hasn't shifted much in the last 12 months. So I'll just hand over to Margot now to touch on these ones.
So I get the low lights. So across 2025, we see a pattern of softening public confidence and engagement in the areas of emergency preparedness and climate change impacts. These declines are not dramatic in isolation, but together they point to fatigue, uneven recovery from Cyclone Gabrielle, and gaps in perceived support, particularly from those already facing barriers. So if we dig a little deeper into the emergency preparedness, we're seeing a natural drop-off 2 years after Gabrielle. People are still preparing, but not as fully as before. And probably if I went round the room and asked you if you all had the 5 recommended actions, I very much doubt everybody would have the 5 recommended actions. So it's just a natural pattern that happens. And the particular one that we've noticed, the biggest slip-off, is in emergency kits. Just to put this in perspective, the latest NEMA preparedness survey shows that New Zealanders overall are less prepared than Napier residents, so as shown by the survey. So we're, whilst we've had a drop, we're still above what many New Zealanders are working at. The groups finding it hardest are younger people, renters, and those experiencing distress or low social connection. For them, emergency planning is often just overshadowed by more immediate pressures. The positive sign, though, is that confidence in emergency management civil defence is starting to rebuild, even if we haven't reached pre-cyclone levels. On the climate change, concern continues to soften. Residents still understand the main local risks: flooding, heavy rain, sea level rise, and almost everyone said that they're taking at least one environmentally positive action. Those who feel concerned to continue to do more, so the link between awareness and action is still strong. What people need to do now, and what we need to encourage, is practical ways to keep people still engaged with it. I think probably overall we're not seeing disengagement, but just people are overwhelmed. There's a lot happening in people's lives. 2 years on from the cyclone, people's attention, energy and capacity to act have just declined. So those with the least resources are feeling this the most. So the declines are a signal that whilst there's a broader recovery, some communities are still struggling and carrying a heavier burden than others. Oh, it's still me. So I'm going to talk about how we use this information, because obviously the majority of it sits with my team, the Community Resilience team. So the Social Monitor does not sit on a shelf. It's not something that we do and that we don't actually take any notice of. It actually shapes annual planning and collaborative work both across council and with partner agencies. So some current examples, just to show you, is, and Michelle spoke to this, the development of an action plan out of the multicultural strategy that we had passed yesterday. And this action plan will be guided by Monitor insights on belonging, discrimination and social cohesion. The development of resilience plans that we're doing with communities all the time now. When we're doing the community hubs, we're developing resilience plans with communities, ensuring that local plans reflect preparedness relevant to communities and the needs of the vulnerable groups within those communities. The emergency preparedness work that we're doing for older people and for our disability community, and that we will do with our migrant community going forward through our age-friendly strategy, our disability networks, and all of those things are supported by Monitor data on access and inclusion. Action planning sessions for Safer Napier are coming up, and that we will be presenting this data to the Safer Napier group. And I know that whenever we do present the data, there is high interest within the group about whereabouts things are sitting. It's interesting that the data does help us understand the trends and perceptions on safety and wellbeing. And of course, the development of the Wātea Youth Hub was supported by Social Monitor findings on youth wellbeing, safety perceptions and the need for accessible spaces and support pathways for young people. So I guess for my team, this means when we get the data and looking at it now, because we've got this longitudinal study, I think we now can see that we really need to start shifting our focus from short-term campaigns to longer-term relationship-based resilience, building with particular support for those groups who are experiencing ongoing barriers. And we can see now who those groups are. We know who those groups are.
Kia ora koutou. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That was great insight. Thank you. I'll open the table. Councillor Crystal, and then I'll take Councillor Price.
Just the emergency preparedness, something I think I probably have all 5, having been through the Christchurch earthquake and, I don't know, lived here all my life. But I do know many of my friends, when I tell them, they go, what are you talking about? So how do we educate? I think this is a big thing of educating people what you're actually supposed to have. And is this something we start, at the school level on kids? Because I know kids are really good at telling their parents what to do. They do it really well in the environment space a lot of the time. So how do we, because it's quite simple, but I know it's just people don't get round to it.
Through the chair, it is quite simple, but if you're struggling to put food on your table, it might be difficult to have enough food to be able to store enough food to be able to shelter in place. So there are those outside influences that we can't change those. But I agree with you, it is information. We have been doing quite a bit of work with groups who we see as vulnerable. So through our age-friendly strategy, we have done a big grab bag program to encourage people around that. And you would have seen at Whānau Fest, we did a huge program there with the big emergency tent, talking to people about understanding about being prepared. But it is work in progress. We've got some quite cool ideas that we would like to look at, including perhaps talking to our supermarkets about getting some end of line, on the ends of the aisles, preparedness stuff in there, offering some specials around people and just raising awareness through places that we know that people go to regularly. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. I mean, the food thing is one thing, and I know in the cyclone we had an abundance of food that we could get out to people, but storing water is an easy thing for people to do, but people just don't even think about it. So just that's that education thing.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just a simple question. I just wanted to establish which boundaries you used for these figures, because we've had a change in boundaries, and these are 225 figures, which would have been the old boundaries.
Through the chair, I'll just ask Virgil to confirm that for us, please.
Good morning. Good question. Let me just check to see if we have that information in the data. I'm pretty sure that we worked with the new boundaries in terms of how we went about sampling and collecting the data at that time. But I can double check on that.
So would you have gone back with the figures for 24, 23? Would you have got the figures for those new boundaries for that?
Through the chair, so you want to know if we've adjusted, because I see the reporting uses the new
comparing
wards.
apples with apples.
Yeah, so have we gone retrospectively back to use the same? I'm pretty sure they would have, but we can double check and get back to you.
That.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions? I have a comment. I think that you guys have outlined really well how the information is used from an operational perspective, and the fact that we will be having implementation and action plans coming to us. I suppose my concern is how do we use this from a governance perspective? So, when we look at our strategic risks, what does this tell us, and how can it help us to manage those moving forward? So the example that I'd like to bring forward today would be, one of the things I thought of was, what are the top 3 themes from this monitoring report which indicate an erosion of public trust, and what measurable actions are we taking in response? So it's lifting it from that operational delivery part of the organisation. How do we actually use it? Things like I noted in it around infrastructure spend, perception of communication value, those types of things. I want to challenge us to try and figure out how we can use it at a governance level as well. Thanks, Louise.
Through the chair, that might be an opportunity with your strategic day coming up. I think that would be absolutely perfect for you to discuss at that in terms of your priority setting. And secondly, I know you're doing your risk reset. So that might be something you want to consider when you do that workshop.
Thank you. Could we have an action then for our teams who are putting those sessions together to make sure that we capture that and we work it into our agendas? Well, if there are no further questions or comments from the table, I will move to the officer's recommendation that we receive the report dated 4th of March, that we receive the monitoring report as well, and we note the information collected in the monitor informs council and stakeholder work programs. If I could have someone to move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Brownlee, Deputy Mayor Brownlee, and seconded by Councillor Raihania. Would you like to speak to that?
Well done, a good report, and it goes on from the other social report, which is really good. Thank you.
Councillor Raihania.
Oh, tēnā korua o Anuki kia koe. No, it was really insightful to read the report, especially the opportunity for our residents to comment. And I think for myself, really take all the kōrero and all the insights on board going forward. Kia ora.
Do I have anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? No. If not, I will put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Virgil. Right, next up, we have our quarterly performance report ending 31st of December 25. We have apologies from Jay McLaughlin, but we do have our wonderful Talia here to present.
Thank you. So I can only cover off parts of the report. I'll talk briefly to the financials. If there's any questions, there's other people in the room, or we can.
Can I get you to move the microphone a little bit closer? Thank you.
So while these are our final half-year results, I'll just caution against reading the numbers as a straight line towards year-end. The remaining quarters will reflect seasonal patterns, timing differences and decisions yet to be made. However, our year-to-date operating shortfall of 7.8 million is 6.7 million unfavourable so far. While revenue is lower than expected, the operating expenditure is also lower and therefore offsets some of the variance. We have 45 million of capital expenditure that has been delivered so far, and while this is under budget, it does put us on track to deliver our largest ever capital program. And again, the only being half year doesn't mean that that's half of the spend that we'd expect for the year end. Thank you.
Thank you, Talia. I'll open the floor for questions, comments. Wow, just a bit early this morning, mate. I do have a service-related question, and I'm unsure if there's anyone in the room that will be able to answer it, but I will ask it. It's the quarterly, service level for Napier Assist. I noticed it was far down on the previous quarter, and just wondered if someone could give us an explanation, because I'm sure there is one. I'm sorry, I can't. Hang on. It's one of the graph pages, though. It was almost half below. Yes, it is page 106 of our agenda.
Take a guess at it,
Yeah.
I'll get a proper response for you. I suspect it is to do with that we had to pull back on the daytime monitoring, daytime patrols to enable the nighttime CCTV work. And that's had an impact on the amount of staff that are available daytime to do those, shot.
Thank you. Any further questions, queries, comments, team? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Alrighty, we will move to the motion before us then, that we receive the report titled Quarterly Performance Report ending 31 December 25. Can I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Mawson, moving. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Isaac Sharland. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Mawson?
Yeah, just to say thank you for the report, even though this this only took a little short amount of time. This report's very comprehensive, and that's probably due to the fact that you did a good amount of work. Thank you.
Councillor Isaac Charland. Nothing further. Anyone else wish to speak? No. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Talia. Next up, we have Alistair joining us. Thank you, Alistair, to take us through the Treasury activity and funding update.
Good morning.
Morena.
So this report provides a snapshot of and a summary of our recent Treasury activity. Was that
Just move the...
better?
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
nice. So I won't recite the whole report, assuming you have read it. Okay, so on the investment side of things, which is short-term investments, excluding our investment portfolio investing, I thought just a bit of context. With our treasury management, we're probably more interested in managing liquidity and cash flow than investing. So that's why we have shorter term deposits. Some of our policy there asks for term deposits around the year term, but we're really managing our liquidity over a 6-month term at the moment. So we won't really hold cash for enough cash to invest longer than that period. So we do have some term deposits. When we have surplus cash, we'll invest that, but it's aligned to what that future expenditure requirements are, really. So, yeah, I mean, this policy we can review, and we will go through that, but I think it would improve our liquidity measures if we held more, but there's a cost to holding cash, so we're kind of balancing those at the moment. So that's a quick summary of investments. Debt, we've got some new borrowing, which is just in line with our annual plan projections. So, yep. The debt to revenue headroom, we're meeting all of our requirements there, all of our covenant measures, so that's good. And I thought just to summarise some of our treasury management work streams would be useful. We have received a green loan facility from LGFA for the Te Kiti construction project, which means we get a 5 basis point reduction on our borrowing, which is quite good. So that's ring fenced to that construction project. We can't spend it on anything else. So we'll bring that on board as required for the cash flow of that project. We've also just got approval of a climate action loan, which is for general borrowing across council, which is a 2 basis points interest rate reduction. But also up front, we are getting 40 grand to cover compliance costs, which is very useful. We won't see the benefit of the basis points reduction until we start bringing on a lot more borrowing. So it's nice to have some upfront support for all the work that Michelle and the team are doing around, greenhouse gas emissions and that stuff, because a lot of work is happening, and that just helps kind of support that activity to continue as well. We've also completed an RFP for an external Treasury advisor, just to assist us to kind of deliver things a bit quicker, like a credit rating is the first thing we'll jump into. Definitely something we need to get. It should give us a 10 points basis reduction on our interest costs, which is pretty useful. There's a whole lot of other kind of requirements and that we'll need to take council through, and we'll plan out the project because it's quite a task to complete. And the Treasury advisor will also help us with water entity advice, policy review, and just improving our Treasury reporting. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Alistair. Councillor Price.
What was the first item you mentioned that we'd had a 0.5 or?
So the green loan for the Te Kiti construction.
Okay. So where does that sit with our budgeted interest rate?
That'll be an improvement to what we budgeted.
So it's low.
Yeah, definitely.
Low budget.
Yeah, that's a budget saving.
You don't know how much? What?
Don't have that number in front of me. I think our budgeted interest rate was around the 6% for this year. Our average, I actually wrote it in the report what our average interest rate is it's below the 5% at the moment, so that decreases it a little bit more.
Okay.
For that 100 million worth of borrowing.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Through you, Madam Chair, just a question about the credit rating. Obviously, applying for such a credit rating has a cost, and
Yes.
then maintaining it has a cost.
Yes,
And that cost, our benefit outweighs the cost?
it does. Over time, as we bring on new borrowing at that new lower rate.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Just further to that question, what is the timing expected of the appointment of the external Treasury advisor?
So we have appointed them.
Oh, you have?
So
Great.
now we just need to get started. We've been given advice from them that it's about a 2-month period to get the credit rating as well. So we just
Okay.
need to get that happening.
That's great to know because I recall that we said it was worthwhile once we hit that $100 million worth of
Yes.
borrowing, and so we're certainly at that.
Yeah, we're at the point now we need to
Yeah.
get into that. Yes.
Any further questions or comments from anyone? Nope. I will move to our recommendation that we receive the report titled Treasury Activity Funding Update for the 4th of March. I'm happy to move that from the chair if I could have someone to second it, please. Thank you, Councillor Price. Look, great work. I think we've gotten into a really good routine of having this information come to us and keeping things in front of us so that we can maintain oversight. Really looking forward to having the credit rating in place and getting that process underway. So, it's good for us to be able to have this consistently come to us. Councillor Price.
No, well done, and it's good news on the interest rates, obviously.
Yes, no, it's all helpful.
Thank you.
Right, anyone else wish to speak? If not, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thanks, Alison. I'm going to share my microphone in case we have any questions, but we'll let Gemma present our next paper for us, the submission schedule update, 4th of August.
Thank you. Morena koutou ko Gemma McDade tuku. Ingoa, so I'm a governance advisor. One of the processes that the governance team oversee is the submission process, so the way that Napier City Council submits to consultations opened by external organisations. So this report's really just a summary of all those considered consultations between August 25 and February 2026. All submissions that have been lodged have been circulated to elected members for feedback prior to them being submitted. So this report's just for information. I'd just like to provide the update that in relating to the central government reforms, the number of submissions that were sent by council officers to those organisations are available on the Napier City Council website. So on the homepage, if you search for central government reforms, there's some detail on the reforms and the submissions are available under a link as well. I'd just like to take the paper as read.
Thank you, Gemma. Do we have any questions, guys? We wouldn't. Right, I'll move straight to the recommendation then that we receive the report titled Submission Schedule Update 4th of August to 23rd of February 26. Can I have someone to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Seconded, Councillor Crystal. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think staff for the submissions, the preparation they make is quite intense. It's if you've been through that process, it's about careful analysis of any proposed bills or papers within central government, and it's important that our organisation submit on most papers to ensure that the interests of Napier are well protected in any submission or outcome process. So I thank the staff for their efforts. I thank them for this report. The summary is excellent, and I look forward to future reports.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Crystal.
No, just thank you for all the work that's gone into these. The next thing is to see how much notice our submissions pull at a central government level. But yeah, they're really, really detailed, a lot of them, and they listened to our input we did last year, which was really cool.
Would anyone else like to speak to it? I would just like to reiterate the comments made by both councillors, but in particular, this is about advocating for our community. This is about protecting our future, and I I want to acknowledge the work by our council officers, but also the time spent by councillors to go through them, to provide feedback as well. It is really important, especially in the current operating environment and political environment that we're in. So I will put the motion. With that, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right. We'll move to the one that we swapped around so that we are still here, and we will move to the paper that is our reports under delegated authority tenders let, of which there are 2. Is anyone present? No? No? Does anyone have any questions? We may have to record them and take them offline if there are any questions about those 2 tenders. I guess just for public interest, it is the Awatoto wastewater outfall replacement, that being awarded, and the Pirates rugby field. No questions? Great, I'll move straight to the recommendation then that we receive those reports. I'm happy to move that from the chair if I can have someone to second it, please. Thank you, Councillor Price. I don't need to speak to that, do you? You want to say something about Pirates?
I'm going this afternoon to have a look at it. Let's all go.
That might be the case. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, next, I would like to move to our update from AIM, Ahuriri Investment Management. We have, in the first instance, to present the paper, we have Craig Kenny and Jess Allen. Thank you.
Up for them. So. Good morning. So Craig and I are just here really as a precursor to a presentation from Hamish and Gareth, and they are here sitting behind us, so we'll be quick and get to the point so you can actually hear the exciting update from them. We just wanted to give you a bit of a verbal update around, I guess, the transition around AIM and how that transition has been going over the last few months since we incorporated the CCTO in August. And obviously, Craig and I have a close working relationship with the CCTO on behalf of the shareholder, but also to execute our responsibilities under the management services agreement that we have with the entity, which our property team and our other corporate functions effectively provide services to the CCTO. And the transition, I guess, has been sort of integrated and has sort of turned into, I guess, a more formal relationship over the last few months as AIM has sort of stood up and is more established with its own internal resourcing. So since the 1st of July and through August, in those first few months, we effectively established the entity, appointed the board, provided an induction process for the board members, and we provided much of the sort of transitionary resource through those first few months while they were sort of finding their feet, which has been great. And do you want to provide a bit of an update around the portfolio and the team and what the work that they're doing?
Sure. Yeah, no, very much transition sort of process, and it's been moving at pace, which is good, and sort of finding just what's sort of needed as we move through and understand more about that portfolio as well. From the team's point of view, it's very much just trying to work very closely, particularly now we've got Gareth on board as well, and actually really understand some of the areas that we need to support in. From an overall portfolio point of view, we didn't sort of sleep over Christmas. We had a fairly busy time off the back of a December board meeting where we sort of got in and sort of tried to help alongside to just start to get to a view of what next. And that part, along with the team, understanding where things are at, bedding in where they need to support particularly around just that good information around leases and that sort of side of things. So the team's been really enjoying it, and I think it's been a good sort of emphasis from a purely commercial point of view to sort of look at our processes and what we need to sort of be doing in that sort of space. So that's transitioning well. Still a lot more to do, but pretty happy with where the team's sort of at. And as we sort of move through to bottom out what we provide as part of that SLA management services side of things and really support as we move through things.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a process of maturity from our side of things as well. As Craig mentioned, we tried to find a balance around focusing on establishing sort of processes and policies in those early stages around the first few months and those first couple of quarters, as well as providing a bit of support around actually providing the board with detail around the assets and the portfolio so they could make some decisions and get some things underway. And you'll hear a little bit about what those things are from Hamish shortly. So hopefully we've struck the right balance. Part of the transition and the process as we've teased things out has been, and you'll hear this from Hamish as well, is that initially when we set up the portfolio, we've made some assumptions around the value of the assets and the financials, some high-level assumptions. And as we've teased those out and put a bit of detail around the financials, there has been some shift in our expectations and some of the asset valuations around the opening balances and that sort of thing. And yeah, I guess that's part of the journey around establishing a new entity, is that you do make some high-level assumptions going into your long-term planning, and as you put some more detail around the modelling and the financial forecasting, you do get some variations as you work through them. So it has been a process of working with Hamish and the board around understanding where some of those variances are and working together to understand, I guess, what the short and medium term implications of some of those variances are, and working together around cash flow expectations are some things as well. So Hamish will take you through all of that, and Craig and I can come back to answer questions at the end of the presentation if you have any, because a key aspect, I guess, of today's presentation is that you are being presented with a draft statement of intent for your consideration, and we would like to receive some feedback from you either at the end of the presentation today around your thoughts around that, so we can go back to the board at some stage.
Thank you.
Right, we'll pass over to Hamish and Gareth. Just got that presentation to bring up, please.
It's probably on there. On the screen.
While they're just setting up, guys, I'll just draw your attention to page 148 of our agendas. That is the interim statement of intent that you're going to be asked for feedback on as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth.
We've got the actual slides rather than the handouts loaded on here.
Put it on the hub.
I'm sure we have it.
Put it on the hub.
On the hub.
Yep.
Might do, because can I make that? Madam Chair, Mayor, Councillors, tēnā koutou katoa, thank you very much for hosting us today, and it's a great pleasure for us to be present at this first meeting. I'm sorry, these you've all got a copy of the handouts. The slides will...
Madam Chair, can I just check?
Oh, sorry.
Was the presentation from the board meant to be in public excluded?
No, we have two presentations
Okay,
today.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Apologies,
Thank you.
Mr. Bell.
No, thank you. And we will, obviously, there's some commercially sensitive matters that will be covered in the subsequent PX session, Councillor Simpson. So, look, thank you for the chance to appear today, and I would like to commence with an introduction to our new CEO, Gareth Kilsby. We're very lucky to have Gareth on board, and I think certainly the presentation from Jess and Craig indicated the resourcing challenges and the migration, as we've picked up quite a significant workload to work together from establishing AIM. So I don't know if I can make this any bigger. so that we can actually see the slides, but please, if you wouldn't mind working through the handouts that you've been given. Look, I just wanted as part of this to remind councillors around the purpose of AIM as a CCTO, and really fundamentally we're here to deliver and independently manage the commercial portfolio that has been handed to us under delegated authority to manage on behalf of Napier City and ultimately to the benefit of ratepayers. Our focus really is on building that intergenerational portfolio and growing the Pūtea and adding value, I guess, beyond what we might have otherwise expected as a trajectory. There are really 3, but possibly 4 first principles I really want to draw your attention to. We are proactively adopting commercial focus in the way we look at these assets, and that is no disrespect to the way that these assets have been managed, but we are looking to deliver commercial outcomes for the benefit of ratepayers, and therefore that you would expect us to adopt that commercial process. But we do recognise we are operating within the public domain and the nature of the trust that has been given to us in the interest of stakeholders more broadly, and that is very important to us. The preservation of the capital, the Pūtea base, is fundamental as a first principle. We don't just want to sell down assets and pay it away to operating costs. We want to add value to that asset base over time, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. And the fourth one, which I wanted to talk to, which is fundamental, is that ongoing relationship of trust and respect between AIM and council. We are a CCTO. I'm sure at times we will test the envelope. But it's really, really important that not only there are no surprises basis for what we do, there's proactive engagement both with this committee and the council as a whole around what we're doing. There's a very close working relationship with staff, so we really are a commercial partner to council, part of the the family, and fully transparent and engaged with the council team. Just in terms of the timeline to date, very briefly, obviously pre the establishment in August, there's been a lot of work starting with Prosperous Napier and the work that council had done. We're very much treating the 11th months through to June 2026 as an establishment phase. So we're in transition. There's not a lot we're learning, and that's when I say we, it's both council side and AIM side as we go through that process. But the aim is to be fully really established by the end of June, but also to have begun the core work that is fundamental to us achieving impact. So it's not just setting up the rats and mice, it's actually getting on with the work that's there. And then really from 1st of July, the intention is that we're into full execution mode. I don't think there's probably much point having those on screen. Look, just a quick reminder around our starting portfolio. We've obviously got approximately 60 leasehold land assets that have been transferred to our control, where we own the underlying land, but those are all long-term leases on periodic reset. There's a freehold land portfolio of 7 freehold properties, the Parklands residential portfolio, the Hawke's Bay Airport shares, and a managed fund which has been recently put in place. So the starting assets are there. There's been a bit of a moving feast around the valuations and the basis for transfer, and we're working through that with the finance team, but fundamentally the assets are strong and in place. We've had 4 key areas of focus in the first 6 months since our establishment, and really the principle here is we've focused on big rocks. I think you can get lost in the minutiae, and it's very important that we have the processes and disciplines and structures in place, but we've started that process but also focused on things where we add value so we get underway pretty quickly around where the most value comes from. So building the board and getting the governance functions in place as you would expect, with myself appointed in July, independents in August, and then first councillor appointee in December. And that's now operating very effectively as a board, and I'll talk a little bit more around that. We will be doing a review of the governance structure alongside Skill Matrix as we move towards the middle of the year. We've been undertaking an operational transition process very much in partnership with council, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that has been led by Jess, but with Emma Alexander and with Craig coming on board. I think that initially we'd hoped to have a full-time transition manager and analyst, and obviously through a restructure phase, we've all been working all hands to the pump to resource that transition phase. there's a little bit of juggling in and around that, but the focus has been very positive and constructive. The big rock that we've addressed very quickly is a review of the portfolio. Do we actually understand what's in that portfolio? And I'll talk a bit more about that in detail. Do we understand the attributes of it? Do we understand where that sits in terms of a long-term investment strategy? And I think the fourth area we're focused on is with regards to stakeholder management, an element of particularly of meeting Mana Whenua and other business stakeholders to engage early, to be seen as a potential partner for others in and around the region is a very important part of the opportunity for AIM as we move forward. So those have been the four focus areas. In terms of some initial observations, look, I think from our point of view, the aspiration has proved to be very sound. What we're doing is very consistent with market practice for a CCTO in terms of a model. There is lots of inherent potential in the portfolio. And I think as we got into it, we'd seen a list, but we really hadn't seen the detail. There is a lot of potential there, but it's going to require quite a lot of work. And I think bringing that commercial lens to what we own, let alone how we might move it forward, has been really important. I think, as Jess alluded to, we've discovered that the establishment process is not that simple. I think you turn a stone over and you discover 3 or 4 more. It's a bit like walking the tracks. You think you're at the end and there's another hill around the corner. But there's a lot of work done. We've reworked the initial modelling, which has been fantastic. We've started the process of separation to the extent that that's appropriate. That's ongoing. And as I noted, the resourcing factor has really been all hands to the pump. So it's an ongoing process that will continue to evolve. And the third area, really, from our point of view, around observations is around the portfolio as a whole, with that review now completed. Lots of learning is coming out of that, and we're looking actively at next steps, and I'll touch a little bit on that later on this morning. That work will inform the development of our investment strategy, which will be put together with a 3 to 5 year lens to reframe the initial assumptions. Just a couple of comments, particularly to the portfolio per se. At an overall level, the portfolio is sound, but it's been unevenly developed. There are some assets in that portfolio that require reprioritisation and some pretty clear and structured decision frameworks. And there are some assets that are going to require a degree of repair or reset. And that's what we would expect as we bring that commercial lens to the table in partnership with the council team. We're really looking at these assets and understanding them with a different eye, and that helps us move forward. In terms of the building blocks of the portfolio, the leasehold land portfolio is sound, but there is some structural tension and it needs proactive management. The Parklands portfolio, again, is sound with potential. We've adopted a more strategic approach and we're looking at a plan change and adjacent to the existing development, which I can talk to a bit later. The freehold land portfolio and the 7 titles there's a lot of optionality in that. We haven't spent a lot of time looking at that as yet. That'll be phase 2 over the next few months that we'll look at that. Airport, we have now actively engaged. So I think for the first time, we've delivered a very clear letter of expectation to the airport board. We've met with board and management. We've worked very hard to achieve a dividend payment this year, which was unexpected in terms of where the airport was heading. And we've also proactively engaged with the Crown and with Hastings in terms of trying to put an integrated approach in place for the airport. Again, that's a first for the airport, but we've also engaged proactively with Mana Hariri around their aspirations with regards to the Crown stake. So some active work there. The manager fund has now been deployed, so the initial money has been allocated. The appointment of a manager took place very early in the process, and that money is now deployed. In terms of priorities to June, look, from a Parklands point of view, we need to manage the business as usual. We've really sat there and looked at Parklands and said, what's the commercial environment? What is the market? What else is coming to market? What's the best strategy here? I think as a council, historically, we've spent the money on developing Parklands and we've sold sections. We're trying to bring a commercial overlay to that to build on the evolution that's happened inside council in the last 18 months to say, what is the best way to deliver a commercial return for the opportunity? What does that look like in terms of market competition and pricing? So let's do that. Let's do that review. We've effectively completed completed that now and adopted an approach. So the BAU is important. The plan change for the additional area adjacent to Park Island, again, will present a major opportunity, but there are some areas of concern there, particularly in and around stakeholder management and process that we're working on at the moment. With respect to Thames Street, the precinct along Thames Street, significant block of land in there. There are 3 sites in that portfolio where the tenant is vacated and we now have control of the freehold. So a focus for us in the next 6 to 9 months will be the demolition of 2 of the buildings on that precinct and preparing that building for a commercial either for a sale or a commercial lease in place. That will enable us to actually also look to add value to the broader Thames Street area by improving a key element in the middle of that portfolio. We're doing further work around the Ahuriri Bowling Club. I know the initial thinking around that land was to use it for some form of industrial purpose. I think our initial work on that has identified that there's a high value mixed development that could be undertaken on that site. We're actively looking at the highest and best use for what can happen on that site. We're moving into stage 2 of feasibility. At that point, it's likely that we will be tenant driven in terms of that opportunity to manage risk, but there is a significant development opportunity on that site where we can maximise the ownership and the value inherent to council in part or in all. So that work will be focusing. I'll talk a little bit to tranche 1 of leasehold sales in the PX session, but we have identified a first tranche of the leasehold portfolio to bring to market. We'll be undertaking that process from early April, which will enable us to drive some important liquidity. And there are some other areas around the remainder of the portfolio that we're going to be looking at between now and June. The first is a precinct-wide approach to the Inner Harbour West Quay. If I focus on the area from the Takatumu seafood site all the way through West Quay, including the far end of that site now with the Inner Harbour precinct, there's some considerations in there that potentially lead to value creation for the council in time. And the final area really is we're looking very closely at the ongoing management of the business, how we engage with the council team to most effectively manage portfolio and to then put together a very clear investment strategy moving forward. So at a high level, Madam Chair, that's a bit of an overview. We'll dive down into a little bit more of the commercial detail in the second session, but very happy to take any questions
Thank you, Ms. Beck.
at this juncture at a high level.
I will give my colleagues just a little bit more time to think of some questions and offer the mic to Gareth. I understand that the team haven't met him before, so just hand over to you, Gareth, to introduce yourself.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning, and thank you for the welcome. I guess I'm now nearly 5 weeks into the role, so I think just to pick up on some of Hamish's observations. That experience so far has been a very positive one. I think my interaction with the council team has been nothing but supportive. So I've enjoyed working with Craig and his team and others, and I think basically it's been a very, very good experience, and one which I didn't had probably some thoughts about how that might go, but I think there's been nothing but support for the AIM concept and us as a team. I think also my observations around and what I've done in the last 5 weeks is tried to understand the portfolio myself and where the opportunities are, especially the low-hanging ones, and I think there are. So I think there's going to be some good opportunities that we are cracking on with. As Hamish said, I'm very focused on making sure that the setup phase is done well, and there's still some work to do on that. But by the end of June, I would like to think that we're well and truly completed that part. But alongside that, there's some project opportunities, especially around the leasehold portfolio, that I'm very focused on and driving at pace to get some get some action and get some outcomes. So that's probably what I wanted to say at this point. But Hamish and I welcome any questions.
Great, thank you. I'll open up to the floor. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a question not relative to the what we hear, but Gareth, what other resource does AIM need to make your job easier as in an administration point of view?
probably still forming a view on that, Councillor Taylor. There is good support I'm getting from within the property team, and I think that's the key area that I need support in at the moment, but I'm getting good support there. As that evolves and as we start moving into the projects and projects start becoming live, such as the Tranche 1 portfolio that Hamish is going to talk to shortly, it's a little bit of a case of I don't know what I don't know at the moment. So in terms of the resourcing, that's something I'll be working with Craig on in particular over the coming weeks. So I've also got support from the finance team, so that's proving very, very useful, and from Gemma as well in terms of an EA governance support. So the key things are there at the moment, but I think it'll definitely change as we crank on.
If I could add to that, I mean, I think we've been pragmatically resource light, I guess, in the first 6 months post restructuring because we had to. And I think our intention is we don't want to load AIM with cost and overburden. It's very easy to do that ahead of the actual requirement. I think it's likely that as we move forward, where we can effectively use contractors or external resource with specific expertise, we will utilise that rather than trying to build an overhead base with an AIM. But we've got good contracted finance support now in place. And I think, as Gareth has said, as the strategy unveils, we'll look to then specific resource as appropriate, only as appropriate.
Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Being a ward councillor for Parklands is a bit of a tricky one. I know you've met with them, and I was just wondering if you could give us some feedback on that. Plus, the designation of the land will be a council decision, I would imagine. So we've all got to be working together.
Councillor Price, perhaps that an element of that I might address in the second session, if that's okay. I think at a high level, we've been very active to try and meet and engage with stakeholders in the Parklands estate. I think there is a significant amount of history and relationship between Parklands residents and council. And as we look at where we are with the current development, potentially an incremental plan change to consider, plus post-cyclone considerations and some stormwater legislative changes that are impacting residents. All of that has been conflated into a fairly high degree of sensitivity with Parklands residents. Our approach has been to front foot that and own that relationship from an AIM point of view, but to very clearly involve where we can council staff. It's been a little bit bumpy, I would have summarised over the last 3 or 4 months, but we're really engaging in good faith with residents. Our aim is to be a good quality developer, but again in that public domain to also discharge where we can the public interest from council. But we do need to delineate the nature of what is a council requirement more generally on ratepayers in Napier from what we're doing as a manager of a development asset. So ongoing high attention, but some nuances in that I can talk to a little bit later.
Thank you, and thanks for answering that, because I think it's part of this that the public should hear and fully understand your position. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, look, I've attended now 3 public meetings, and I have made myself available to attend any of the residents' meetings that they wish, and I will hold myself personally accountable, as I'm sure you will, for managing that relationship. But I'm sure there'll be some scars along the way.
Thank you.
Anything further? Deputy Mayor Brownlee.
Through the chair. Hey, Hamish, Gareth, what's the outside of this forum? How can we ask questions if we have questions that we want to put to you guys? What's the procedure there? Can you give us a bit of a rundown on that?
Look, I think, look, I've said one of those first principles is that strong, transparent partnership. I do not want in any way, shape or form for us to be seen as a rogue element running off into the sunset. And I'm hoping that through our behaviour we've demonstrated a very close level of engagement both with staff and councillors, and that's a personal undertaking of mine, is that there should never be any surprises. The reality is if you're finding out only through our quarterly updates what we're up to, then that's probably too late. There is a fine line there between enabling a board that you've put in place to manage it and the council reaching into management that we need to be careful of for both council and for AIM, and we will navigate that respectfully. But I think my undertaking and the commitment from the board and management is that we will provide very regular updates outside of our formal reporting. You also have in place Councillor Taylor as an appointee to the board, and I'm sure Councillor Taylor will be having conversations in the background. We are going to manage our reporting as a board back through the chair to you as a council, rather than putting Councillor Taylor in a position of trying to be in a reporting position. He's contributing to the board as a whole. But we're very grateful to have him on board, and we're absolutely aligned around our approach and a full transparency. So I guess the short answer, Councillor Deputy Mayor, to your question is I'm happy to have a call anytime, as is Gareth, as are any of the board members, and we would hope that we would be calling you before you feel the need to call us.
Thank you.
Anything further? No? Thank you, guys. I think
Thank you.
Some great clarifications there. If you just would like to stay there, because we will move into public excluded, but I will just follow procedure and we'll look to the officer's recommendation for this part and the presentation we've just received. So we've got receiving the report. We will take B actually and put that into later into the meeting, just noting that we won't approve the draft statement of intent yet because we will receive feedback on that, but we will do A and C, which is to endorse the AIM update, financial update and transition investment plan, and that we note receipt of the AIM board operating certificate. If I could have someone to move that. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Second, please. Thank you, Councillor Isaac Sharland. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd just like to make the comment that as the elected member on the AIM board, officially the 1st of December, I've been highly impressed with the actions of the board, and I fully endorse the actions that they have been taking. I am consulted from an elected member point of view on all matters and how politically some of these decisions would be seen, and I have full confidence in the fact that we have a board of independent commercial people looking at this portfolio. For me, it's been a real learning curve, so I fully endorse it and am happy to move these recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Isaac Sharland.
Just that I'm excited by the potential that you've started to talk to today, even though it's based on, obviously very experienced evidence put in front of us. I'm really excited to see where this goes in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to it? No, I will put the motion. That is again for officer's recommendation A, C and D. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will look for someone to move us with the recommendation to exclude the public. The reason that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, which is a verbal update from the Chair and Chief Executive of Ahuriri Investment Management. Our reporting officer attached to that is Craig Kenny. I'm happy to move that from the Chair and seconded by Councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. And can we just have 2 minutes? I'm busting to the toilet.